I don't know. Am I going to retire? I don't know. Am I going to fight again? I don't know. There's just so many things that are just getting in the way. I don't know if any of that made sense. Or maybe I just said a whole lot of nothing. In terms of boxing, well, 2022 to now, it's just been complicated. Unlucky. Sad.
KSI has become one of the biggest influencers on the entire planet, right? It's, no secret. And he really has kind of trailblazed influencer boxing. Obviously, it was Joe Weller and Theo Baker that started it all the way back in 2017, 2016. But the real big fight that really made people look at this and think, wow, this could be something, is when Joe Weller took on KSI. They scaled it up from just a gym to a stadium. They scaled it up from YouTube videos to full-on press conferences and face-to-faces. KSI, without KSI, to be fair, I don't think influencer boxing would even be a thing right now. Some people would say that's probably for the best. Some people would say, well, actually, he's brought a lot of attention to the sport, and especially younger audiences. He's brought a lot of attention to boxing. Now, it's been controversial, to say the very least, influencer boxing. People who are die-hard boxers or fans of boxing say that this got no place. But, there's no doubt that it's definitely elevated the sport to a degree. But KSI, obviously, for all that he has elevated the sport, has made some very controversial decisions, especially with regards to the fights that he's picked and, taking people on and all the rest of it. And Jake Paul is obviously trying to elevate his platform and break through from not just influencer boxing, but into the real boxing scene and make himself a bit of a household name in that sense. While KSI has kind of lingered a little bit. Obviously, he's got a hell of a lot going on in and of himself, but over on his YouTube channel, he spoke recently about his boxing career. Just a video titled "My Boxing Career." It was a Reddit video, but he basically spoke about the future of his boxing career, about what we can expect next from him. And actually, this was something that I absolutely did not see coming. This is what he had to say.
Of my boxing situation, it's been unlucky. It's been like Arsenal. We've been so unlucky with the amount of injuries that we've had, the amount of problems and situations that we've ended up in with the red cards, etc. That's how I feel. I've just been unlucky with the 2 fights in one night and then getting injured, or even back when I was fighting Joe Fournier and I, knocked him out with my forearm, or me losing to Tommy Fury when I shouldn't have lost. It's just been unlucky. Or even, going back to me fighting FaZe Temper when I was meant to be fighting Dylan Dennis. I didn't want to be fighting Temper. I could even go back to me doing the 2 fights in one night. Me versus Swarms wasn't meant to be a thing. Me versus Pineda wasn't meant to be a thing. My boxing career, since I've come back, has just been problem after problem after problem, and just being unlucky over and over and over and over again. And it's a shame. It's a shame, and it's frustrating, and I know how my fans feel. How do you think I feel? The amount of stress that I've gone through the past few years, even with Misfits in general, it's been stressful. Just trying to, make sure everyone is doing well, make sure everyone gets something out of the scene. It's stressful. I feel like I've aged in these 2.5 years of Misfits being created. So where am I in terms of boxing? I don't know. Am I going to retire? I don't know. Am I going to fight again? I don't know. There's just so many things that are just getting in the way. I don't know if any of that made sense. Or maybe I just said a whole lot of nothing. In terms of boxing, well, 2022 to now, it's just been complicated. Unlucky. Sad.
So there you are. You can tell, right, with KSI, he wears his heart on his sleeve. You can tell when he's into something and he's all for it, and you can tell when he's definitely not. And this is one of those instances where you can quite blatantly tell that he is really, bothered by his boxing career. He's bothered about the stress that he's under with it. And, it makes total sense. I can imagine that all of that stuff can suck the joy out of a lot of things. Within the same video, right, he spoke about Wade Plemons. Now, Wade obviously kind of came onto the boxing scene and the influencer boxing scene towards the very beginning, especially as a analysis and you know, the people that reads the data. I can't say the word. And, you know, he was really kind of keeping people up to speed with everything that was going on in a, you know, easy to understand kind of way. And KSI and Wade recently have had a massive, well, they had a massive fallout not too long ago, where, you know, KSI essentially fired Wade from Misfits Boxing and stuff, and it was a whole thing, man. It was a whole thing. But, you know, obviously there's been a lot of back and forths between the two, and this was one of the tweets that KSI responded to.
Sick, but I gotta give Dylan some credit here. He was ready to go. I don't know, like, now you gotta remember, Wade has just been jabbing at me for years, constantly. For me, after having to postpone the fight because I got sick, I was pissed. I was angry because I was training my fucking ass off. You could see that I was training my fucking ass off. So then, for me to get this illness, and then I was trying to train through the illness, and I got more ill to the point where I physically couldn't train and I physically couldn't fight. It broke my heart. It broke me because I trained so hard for this one moment and I wasn't able to get this moment, and I felt like I trained for nothing. And I felt like I let so many people down, you know, everyone working at Misfits, all the fighters, all the trainers, etc. I let everyone down, and I'm still trying to do it, but I couldn't. And I'm taking antibiotics and it weren't working. I had to take another set of antibiotics. I'm doing everything just to try and get better. I'm not getting better. It's so frustrating. And bro, like when I had to, you know, tell Mams and everyone else that I don't think I'm going to be able to do this fight at this date that we were meant to do it. Bro, I broke down, man. I'm there crying, bro. In my room, just crying because, like I said, I felt like I just let everyone down. So then, you know, I go online and I see all this shit and, you know, people just jabbing at me, and it was just Wade, bro. Normally I just ignore it, but it just pissed me off, and I just lost my shit, man. I just fully lost my shit, and I just said this: shut the fuck up. You annoying waste of oxygen. Surely your knees must hurt so much at this point from sucking on Jake Paul and his team all the fucking time. He fully does. He's always on Jake Paul's side. Even when he was fighting an old man, an old Mike Tyson, he was there like, oh, this is a big look for Jake, etc. It's just...
So, yeah, obviously that was with regards to the initial tweet that Wade put out when the fight was postponed and all the rest of it. I've covered that in depth already on the channel. If you want to check that out, you know, go over to the other videos. But now Wade did respond to this video in a tweet, right? So obviously with regards to what KSI has just said there. And he said, honestly, this is sad to see. KSI is understandably emotional and about a situation that he tried to do his best with. No jabs or anything. I get it. It sucks, which is what I originally said. He's wrong about what it is that I do and the way that I've perceived him or Jake. He has every right to feel how he wants to feel, but whatever personal jabs or shots I've taken at KSI have always been return fire. Maybe in retrospect, I should have realized it affected him a lot more than I understood. Regardless, I watched this clip just seeing a guy force himself to continue to do something that he doesn't want to do right now. So just to clear it all up, whether he believes this or not, I genuinely don't hate JJ. I honestly would rather see him do well and be a superstar that he is, boxing or not. You know, very respectful response from Wade there. With regards to that, and you know, he does actually comment on this you know, again on his YouTube channel, and he kind of covers the entire situation with regards to him, with regards to Jake, with regards to KSI, and he has this to state, which again was very in keeping for Wade. You know, he's very respectful from what I've kind of gathered from him online. He might be a massive knobhead behind the scenes, but online he carries himself well.
Needs to be said. I don't need to drag this out any further. I wanted to do this video to make it very clear and to hopefully kill all this beef talk. I have no ill will toward JJ. If he does toward me, that's fine. I still want him to do what's best for him. I still want Misfits to thrive. I still want all of the people that get opportunities because of that to get those same opportunities. I just think it's silly because he's right. I know how the internet works as well, and things get clipped and sent, and out of context sentences mean a little more when you're a little bit more emotional about things, and I just don't want to do it anymore. In fact, I'll put the olive branch out there. If KSI ever wants to sit down and have a full-on conversation about it on camera, off, I'm here. If he doesn't, appreciate the opportunities, JJ. Thank you for helping me break through. But this is where I pick up the shovel and bury this beef. It's over, at least on this side. So that's my response to KSI. You guys let me know what you think down.
They are. So, you know, like I say, very respectful. I would love to see that conversation take place because we all know that KSI is not someone who will mince his words, and I don't think Wade would either. So I think we'd see a really raw and honest conversation between the two. Now, obviously, I've spoken about the internet's kind of response, like, you know, in terms of Wade's response, in terms of KSI's response. But what about the fans' response? Now, the internet has been less than forgiving, as you can imagine, to KSI, right? So one person in particular, so obviously within KSI's, like, you know, roundup video, the clip I played at the very beginning, he was like, oh, you know, my career's been incredibly unlucky. And he listed off all the things that made it unlucky. So someone responded, your boxing situation was not, quote, unlucky. It was just poorly managed by your music manager and his old MMA friends at LSF. That's it. Enjoy your life and don't pressure yourself into doing stuff that you're 100% not invested in, just for the sake of building a business, KSI, and then lists off these things. You can be unlucky once or twice, but not for 4 consecutive years repeating the same mistakes. Crazy bad matchups, no decent backups, a horrible looking style which keeps you injured with no good results, not dedicating enough time to boxing, not staying active, etc. Why didn't this happen back in 2018, 2019? Why is it not happening with Jake Paul? Poor management, this is all. Just focus on music or leave boxing for the people who love it. Love you and all the best. So, you know, it was like that's a very constructive response, right? And then we've got this one. Wade has not been jabbing KSI at all, even though he's had every right to do so in the whole situation. He's one of the realest, most unbiased guys in the scene, and not recognizing that is just plain arrogance. Obviously, they're, you know, calling KSI arrogant because he's not seeing, you know, the realism in Wade in this person's opinion. So, there you go. KSI giving a bit of an open-ended potential end for his boxing career, not stating either way. I wouldn't be surprised if at this point KSI just kind of took a bit of a step back from the entire scene and, you know, maybe dabbled back in it later on. But the problem there is that obviously he's got this kind of self-imposed conflict with Jake Paul for who's the best influencer boxer. If KSI takes another one of those hiatuses and Jake continues to fight in the way that he's been doing and matching up with people like Anthony Joshua, for example, there's no denying that KSI will have to back down from that argument and, like, you know, just hand the reins over to Jake Paul. And I don't know if his ego will allow that. Genuinely, I don't know if he can do that. So I'd be really curious to see what his next moves are and the way that he handles himself moving forwards. What do you guys think, though? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump scare the hell out of that like button, subscribe if you're new, and until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.